This is Justine Sacco. She was the communications director for IAC, an internet company owned by media mogul Barry Diller. Today, the only thing she is looking for a new job after making a post on Twitter mocking AIDS victims, but only the black ones. Now, ordinarily I do a mini bio about Sacco and her history of incendiary tweets, but this video isn't about that. It's about the now routine online defense strategy being used to protect her and the thoroughly inadequate response of black men to it. At first, the blatantly racist talking points were few and far between, but the last 10 years they've become commonplace. There's a large number of white people who gladly swarm any news piece, article, or video highlighting racism. And their strategy is simple. Deny something's racist by claiming that it's true, or claim it's a joke, or if all else fails, claim it's PC censorship. Black men have been slow to recognize or respond to this pattern of attack, and it's become more and more bold, to the point now where the kind of blatantly racist talking points that we saw being routinely posted on online message boards is now coming out of the mouths of TV news anchors.
91% of homicides on black Americans were committed by other blacks. Also, 14% of homicides on white Americans were committed by blacks. Twice as many as the other way around. So the truth is that black men are not being hunted down by whites. But the lie was not challenged by the national media.
The point is not whether their talking points are true or not. The point is that when some act of racism is committed against black people, they've made it a point to dismiss it, justify it, or proudly praise it. That's the point. When somebody uses selective reporting of crime stats, you are supposed to strike back with an overwhelming counteroffensive. Remember, the old "these guys are the source of all crime" ploy is the exact same propaganda method the Nazis used against the Jews. Now, black men, take notes. This is how you fight back. This is the FBI website's crime statistics table for 2011. This is where the white supremacists have gotten the statistics that they use in their talking points. Let's examine the stats for arrests of persons under 18. The first thing that leapt out at me was that white arrests far outnumber black arrests in almost all categories. And this is just for offenders under 18. Want to know what a juvenile delinquent looks like? Here it is. But there were 3 categories where black arrests for persons under 18 actually outnumbered white ones: robbery, prostitution, and gambling. In other words, economic crimes. Other areas where white youths far outnumber black offenders are arson, weapons possession, vandalism, DWIs, offenses against family and children, drunkenness, and vagrancy. The pale males lead the league in crime in the under 18 category. Well, that's the kids. Let's move on to arrests for offenders over 18. The stats for gambling drops over 22% for blacks, while they almost triple for whites. Stolen property, the stats for whites increase, the ones for blacks decrease. Sex offenses, the numbers increase for whites and decrease for blacks. Same with arson as a violent crime and arson as a property crime. While crime of any sort by anyone is wrong in and of itself, we must realize that not everyone is equally to blame. There is a color of crime in the United States, but it isn't black. Crime itself is being used as a propaganda weapon of white supremacy to blame the victims and conceal the offenders. Now you see why the white trolls obsess over so-called violent crime stats. I say so-called because arson, sex offenses, and vandalism are all violent crimes, though they don't get touted. Whites commit the vast majority of hate crimes, and their savagery has gone unaddressed and unchanged for centuries. And even when we look at the violent crime stats the white supremacists like to brag about, we notice right away that the arrest for murder and rape for blacks goes down after age 18 while going up for whites. And when you look at a non-violent crime like robbery, the contrast is even more stark. Robbery arrests by blacks drops from almost 70% for those under 18 to a little over 50% for those over 18. However, robbery arrests for whites jumps a stunning 50%. To wit, as whites get older, they also become far more violent and more lawless. And while the crime stats that I saw interested me, what I found to be far more interesting were the crime stats that were missing. Notice how we have no stats for crimes such as mass murder, serial killing, or domestic terrorism.
The truth is that black men are not being hunted down by whites, as some hysterical commentators charged after the Zimmerman acquittal.
Now, it takes some digging, but what you quickly find is that although blacks are only 13% of the population, we are 3 times as likely to be a hate crime victim as a white person. This is why you see them trying to split hairs and dissect individual statistics by saying more whites are attacked by blacks, blah, blah, blah. They don't have real hate crimes to point to, so they've been reduced to cherry-picking fragments of the data, not even a whole statistic, but a fragment of one, in order to fabricate a black-on-white hate crime figure that doesn't truly exist. Now, this is clearly a distortion, but let's deal with the rhetoric as if it were true. As I've shown, even in cases where the offender is black and the victim is white, the cause of the crime is almost always the same: money. In the black community, where money is not the main motive, it is usually murder done for respect. In a society where you're demonized, oppressed, and given no outlet to fight those who are oppressing you, apparently it comes as a huge surprise to white people that an oppressed underclass vent their anger on each other. The number one reason for black crime is economics. Either they're trying to survive, trying to get drugs, which is what an oppressed underclass has always done to escape their misery, to get the respect they're denied in the rest of the society, or they're trying to live the high life by ripping off other people. The number one reason for white crime, on the other hand, is they enjoy it. But all this constant kvetching over crime by the whites really becomes ridiculous when one considers that, according to the same FBI whose statistics these bigots get so worked up over, crime in the U.S. is actually at an historic low. Not just historic for the last 30 or so years, but a dramatic drop in the last 5 years alone. But we all know the problem here isn't crime at all. It's the dramatic diminution of white power on all levels. In recent years, white power has begun to hurt whites themselves, and the white men who run the society desperately want a distraction to get the attention off themselves, and the rank-and-file white men desperately want a foil they can use to feel better about their own sorry lives. Neither the rich white man nor the poor one has any excuse for failure. America has been tailor-made to guarantee white male success, and yet everywhere you look, you're starting to see nothing but white failure. The old black man as the perpetrator ruse has become so useless that now the whites have been reduced to defending armed thugs who gun down children walking home. Now, when these guys get confronted, they immediately backpedal.
The problem in the violence in this country isn't generated by whites. It's generated primarily by blacks. So it's in context. Surely you know that.
Well, the majority of people are actually killed by someone of their own race, and I'm sure that you know that. So you have the majority of white people being killed by white people, 83%.
This is all about protecting Americans, no matter what color they are. That's what this story of this Trayvon Martin is all about, protecting Americans.
But the damage is done. Their goal is to get their talking point out there into the public consciousness. When they launch their racist salvos and nobody responds, they win. And the knee-jerk defenses that Justine Sacco received are all part of it. For example, after Sacco was rightly fired, the dimwits over at Breitbart ran a piece filled with the typical white male phony outrage. This time they started off by attacking the public itself, saying, if you think for whatever reason that what happened to Justine Sacco is okay, I'm assuming you won't have any problem with me watching your personal social media accounts blowing up at Breitbart News what I deem offensive, and then without asking you, contacting your employer and demanding you be fired. Your rules, not mine. That's very interesting coming from this group, because it was Breitbart, you'll recall, who did exactly that to Shirley Sherrod. You'll remember she was the Department of Agriculture employee who the now deceased Andrew Breitbart libelously destroyed the career of with a deceptively edited tape posted on his website. And he himself went on any news outlet dumb enough to have him claiming that she was a racist. He did not give her any opportunity to defend herself, nor did he give her any warning of the attack he was launching. Sherrod had no idea she had been fired, nor had she been given any chance to explain herself beforehand. She'd never even gotten the chance to hear the claims against her. All she knew was she was driving home and got an emergency phone call from her supervisors telling her to pull over on the side of the road right then and there and to text in her resignation that very instant. Why? Because the website Breitbart and its online racist army supported by Fox News created a fake controversy with made-up evidence, and as a result, the White House was so eager to try to get out ahead of the scandal that they couldn't wait for her to come back to the office and type out a resignation. Now, Breitbart's false story caused real consequences. They utterly destroyed Shirley Sherrod's career, her life, and her reputation, all based on lies. Sacco wrecked her own job, however, with the truth. In fact, that's Breitbart's and the white blogosphere's entire problem with it. Sacco was fired based entirely on a post that can be taken no other way than the way in which she said it. And even the liars over at Breitbart seemed to realize what hypocrites they were, because later in the same smear piece, they qualified their defense of Sacco on the grounds that she is a private citizen, as opposed to a public servant like Sherrod, I suppose. Now, there's been plenty of defenses offered by the white trolls, and it's a shame that black men in particular have not upped their debate IQ, because dealing with the talking points is easy enough to do. First of all, Sacco's claim that being white somehow makes you immune to AIDS is a joke on her, because the first recorded AIDS case was a white man, a homosexual airline employee from Canada. The white trolls like to use Wikipedia as their source. Now, it needs to be stated that Wikipedia is an open source website that can be and frequently is edited by any user who has an account. So when some Stormfront refugee quotes Wikipedia as their source, you need to ask yourself if they are in fact quoting bogus information that they themselves put there. However, for the sake of argument, let's use Wikipedia as a source. It immediately disproves the white troll's talking point that Africa has some sort of monopoly on AIDS. Of the top 20 countries with AIDS, India ranks 3rd, Russia 12th, and the US 9th. In fact, to go further down the line, the Ukraine ranks higher than Ghana, the Sudan, or Rwanda, and France ranks higher in AIDS cases than the Congo and higher than its former colonies of Mali or even Haiti. More Germans have AIDS than Jamaicans, and you have a greater chance of getting AIDS in Switzerland than you do in Somalia. Now, I'm not saying that Wikipedia is any sort of reliable source, but what I am saying is that you can beat the white trolls on their own terms. So why aren't you? Some of you think if you ignore these chumps, they'll go away. Well, let me tell you something. It is not harmless to allow these online bigots to keep attacking us. The reason why Trayvon Martin was lynched in the media is because black men didn't even try to mount a substantive media counteroffensive. We sat back and allowed the Stormfront roving racists and their broadcast allies to repeat their made-up statistics and twisted facts, and in doing so, we allowed them to forward a media narrative that George Zimmerman's own lawyers took into court and used to get a cold-blooded murderer off the hook. Even on forums where they can and do fabricate the data, white trolls are still proven wrong about their talking points. But this type of much-needed debunking is few and far between. Our enemies are beating us by default because we do nothing but watch. Black men, when are you going to realize you're in a war? We need to talk to each other, educate each other, and defend each other. If you have a YouTube account, you're supposed to be using it to promote your agenda. But that assumes you have one, because the white trolls certainly do, and they have a ready haven in the mainstream media, and there's good reason for that. This is Ike Perlmutter. You don't know who he is, and that's a shame, because he's not only the CEO of Marvel Entertainment, yes, that Marvel Entertainment, he's also one of the largest shareholders in the Walt Disney Corporation and one of the wealthiest men in America. But he's also got some pointed things to say about black men. When Terrence Howard got fired from Iron Man 2, Perlmutter was reported as having said it didn't matter who they replaced him with because all black people look alike anyways. Think about that the next time you wonder why Marvel never puts out any black superheroes. We don't know who these people are on the internet carrying on this web-based media jihad against us, but we are starting to find out, aren't we? And this disease has spread beyond the usual online sewers. It is now a regular part of so-called mainstream journalism. Next time you see some troll posting the same old canned racist statistics they picked up on Stormfront, take a moment and ask yourself, does this clown work for a TV station or newspaper or major media website? The chances are that they do. What we need is a media counteroffensive, an army of black citizen journalists. That means you. Yes, you watching this video. It's way past time black men began acting as our own media, rather than looking for something to be entertained by or waiting for someone else to post a video or column so you can say, right on, why don't you do some legwork of your own? Black men are where this will have to start because no one else gives a damn except us. Some of us anyway. Stop waiting for someone else to speak up for you, because any man who wants someone else to do his talking for him doesn't deserve to be heard. Our enemies are on the attack daily, and who is exposing them? Who is refuting them? Who is making them pay for it? The internet is a powerful tool meant to empower you, but even the most powerful tool on earth is worthless if you don't use it. And sitting back watching or reading what others have done makes it where all you can be is a meaningless supporter at best and a helpless victim at worst. I've made my choice long ago what I would be, and it's not going to be a victim or a passive observer. Now, show what you are going to do.